Alright, I've now removed the inner sill, and you might be able to see that the outer sill is rusted right through the bottom there. The inside structural part of the car is fairly sound, but where I've got the problem is up the front end, where this structural support here is rusted away, and there's rust in the structural support here, so that has to be replaced. What I'll be doing next is to remake the inner sill. I'll then tack it in place so I can find the position for the outer sill when I cut that. The outer sill is rusted through from the inside all along here, and it'll have to be replaced the full length and probably up into the front section here somewhere. After I make the inner panel, I'll remove all the rust that I can from the inside here all the way along. I'll do that combination of using wire brushes, heavy sandpaper, grinding wheel, and then finally a process I've never used before is to use vinegar to remove the remaining iron oxide, and then finally kill it all with one of the commercial rust converters which has phosphoric acid in it. I've had pretty good success for that in the past, so I'll use that again. You'll probably see on many restoration shows on YouTube and so on, where people would send these vehicles away and have them sandblasted. The reason I don't do that is one because of the cost. Second is it's just awkward to find a place to do it and then to transport the body. I've never sandblasted cars before. I've always mechanically removed rust and converted, and I have never had a problem, so that's what I'll be doing with this vehicle. So the next step, remake the inner sill, tack it in place, then turn the vehicle over the other way so I can remove the outer sill, make that panel, and then use the inner tack panel as a point of reference for making and fixing the outer sill. So that's the next step. Now I've finished making the inner sills, and what I've done is to actually tack them in place rather than fully weld them. The reason for that is to position the inner sill so I can actually build the outer sill onto it. What I intend to do is weld the outer sill and then come back, remove the tack welds, and put preventative paint underneath the sills, and then re-weld the outer sills together. I've actually had to repair some of the major structural steel in the vehicle as well, so I can actually weld to something that's quite solid, not only in the centre section but also in the front section of the car where it's rusted out. I've welded a piece in here, albeit I blew a weld through. I used the arc welder initially and then switched over to an oxy weld. I'll also have to make the section in here, so I've actually got something to attach the outer sill to. But at this stage I'm ready to turn the car over and start working on the outer sill. Now this is the outer sill that I've got to replace. There are sections up in here that's rusted right through, and also along the edges here it's gone rust through. The original trim that was on the side here, you can see the holes along here. That's actually assisted in the panel rusting. The front section here is rusted right out, and all the bottom section is basically gone. What I've done is to make up templates of from the sill on the other side that I'll use to reconstruct this one. So to do that, I've taken a lot of measurements, and also I've made up wooden templates, certainly of the bottom section of the sill, and I've got the actual profile of the bottom of the sill, because it actually isn't straight, it bends down and then curves up. And in addition, I've taken measurements and profiles of the curving in here. So the idea is, if you take enough measurements, make enough templates, I should be able to reconstruct that outer sill, albeit in probably 3 or 4 sections, then weld them together before finally deciding where I'm actually going to cut this sill off and weld to the body. And this is the repair I'm making to the outer sill. This front section here, I've rebuilt the steel supports inside the framing inside the front of the car, and then I've welded this piece in here temporarily, or not temporarily, I've welded in permanently, but the welds need to be finished off. I'm not too worried about the welds in this section, because this is all filled with lead. It's all lead up in here. It was lead all the way around this section, and I need to lead fill that when I finish putting this panel in. So I've put that in place. The next piece will be this section here, which I need to weld in place. Just need to clean it up a little bit more and straighten it up, reshape this a bit more before I do the welding. This is the captive nut for the front mudguard supports. I just need to recheck to make sure that's in the right position, and then I'll put a few tacks in this and double check that, and then weld this in. Now the idea would be to try and fuse weld all of this. If I can, I will. If not, well, I'll do the best I can. I'll use a bit of weld filler and get the best finish I can. Because I haven't completely welded the inner sill in yet, it'll give me the opportunity to get behind this weld and flatten out the surface in case there's any slight distortion. If I was a good oxy welder, I would do a perfect seam weld, and you would then need very little filler. I'm not optimistic that I'll be able to fuse weld this or do it very well, but with the filler I'm using, it's fairly soft, easy to grind off, and I'll end up with a fairly flat surface here that I can panel beat to make sure it's reasonably level. Then I may need to apply a little bit of normal polyester filler here just to make up some of the minor indentations. As I say, in this section here it will actually be lead filled anyway, so that will take care of any problems in my own welding. So it's progressing. It's adding. I've got a lot more strength now at the front of that section. I'll weld this in, then I'll look at redoing the lead. You might ask, why have I put the mudguard on here now when I'm nowhere near finished? There's a good reason for that, and something you should remember when you're working on any part of the car is that you have to assemble the components at various stages during the restoration to make sure they fit. Now, bearing in mind I've just just welded a new piece of metal in here, welded a new captive nut for the mudguard. I need to make sure that the shapes I thought I needed are exactly the right shape to fit the curvature of the mudguard at the back there. Now, as it turned out, when I welded this in, a little bit of distortion created in the panel, and it did not fit with an even gap along the edge here. I've done a bit of panel beating to straighten that out. I need to do a little bit more on the sill here, a little bit on the guard, and then when I'm satisfied that it is fairly close, I can then take the guard off and then look about whether I start to lead fill this section in here, which was originally lead filled anyway. But yeah, it's a warning that you need to take heed of, in that you must always fit, whether it be guards, doors or whatever, during the restoration process. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll put things together, you'll paint them up, and when you come to the final assembly you'll find things just don't fit, and then it's just too late. And then you've got to ruin the perfectly good paint work and then rework things. So it's always better to be careful, err on the side of caution, and say, look, let's check, recheck, and also you make sure that you get your panels fitting perfectly, and probably even better than they were when it was originally made. Now, when I offered up the guard to the body, I thought that the body was a little bit out of shape, which it was, but also I found that the guard wasn't straight. At some stages it had damage particularly to this corner, and this whole area should have been straight at the mounting points, and was about 3 millimeters out, which was causing the panel not to fit properly when I applied it to the body. So I'm straightening the guard out as well as straightening the body. So just a warning, never assume that the panels are straight. Always check, and I checked this against the other guard, and sure enough it was slightly out of shape. Now, this is the result of the welding I've done on the sill. The welding's come up reasonably well. I blew it through in a couple of spots and had to use some filler rod, but that's not too bad. Any bad finish I end up having on this I'll fill with lead. What I'm doing now, I'm just fitting the bottom section of the sill, making sure it all lines up and is the right shape before I actually weld the bottom section to the side there. It'd be a bit challenging to weld, but I'm hoping if I can get it reasonably straight, it will weld in okay. I'm now working on the inner sills for the passenger side. The inner sills aren't too bad. I've just cut them out. Okay, they've got a bit of heavy rust on the inside, but they weren't rusted through. But the reason I removed them was to actually look at the condition inside. And you can see that the reason why these things rust is a build-up of dirt, rocks, all sorts of debris, all on the bottom of the sill. And the reason for that, of course, is because of these holes in the inner sill. So what I may do is to make up some flat panels to put over those holes. I'll screw them on so they can be detached to get access to the inside of the sill, but mostly to keep some of this rubble out and then to preserve the sill. So at this stage I'll make up new inner sills. I'll clean all this area out, then look at the condition of the outer sill. The bottom of the sill is obviously rusted, but the actual outer sill is not too bad for the most part. The bottom end of it is probably rusted off and I'll have to replace that. So that's what I'm doing at this stage. It's in better condition than the driver's side, but it certainly won't do any harm to replace this inner sill and work from there. The passenger side certainly wasn't as bad as the driver's side sill. The problem is in the bottom section of the sill here, and I've just fabricated a new bottom, and I've just been fitting it to the outer sill here. Before I weld it, I've just been marking up where I'm going to cut it, so I'll cut this bottom sill off, which is underneath. That will all be cut off, and I'll just replace this section as well as I've already done the inner sill. I won't be putting these chrome strips back on, so that's just one less area where it'll be prone to rust when it's repaired. So all this bottom section will be replaced. I'm now ready to cut this off and then weld that in using the oxy.